I stood in my parents' driveway in suburban Cleveland, adjusting my best travel jacket and checking my watch one final time. 8 months of planning had led to this moment. $15,000 of my hard-earned savings would give my parents the European anniversary trip they deserved. 3 weeks in Paris, Rome, and Barcelona with first-class everything. When Mom appeared with their suitcases, she smiled casually. "Oh, Bedford, Amanda's coming instead of you. Your sister needed some rest, so we decided to take her." Dad nodded agreement. I watched them drive away with my jobless sister, leaving me behind after I paid for everything. The silence in my empty driveway felt suffocating as I stared at the tire marks where my rental car had just pulled away, carrying my family to the airport. My family, without me, after everything I had done for them. I walked back to my sedan, hands trembling as I gripped the steering wheel. The betrayal cut deeper than any business rejection or failed relationship ever had. This was my family choosing someone else over me again. As I drove through the familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood, memories flooded back with painful clarity. I remembered being 12 years old working my first paper route. While Amanda got driven to dance classes, she quit after 2 months. I was the one saving every birthday dollar for college, while she spent her allowance on nail polish and magazines. During high school, I worked weekends at the local grocery store stocking shelves and cleaning floors so I could pay for my own clothes and school supplies. Amanda, 3 years younger, received everything she wanted without question. New shoes every month, the latest phone designer backpacks that cost more than I made in 2 weeks. When I graduated valedictorian and earned a partial scholarship to Ohio State, my parents attended the ceremony, but spent the entire reception talking about Amanda's struggle with algebra. When Amanda barely passed 9th grade, they threw her a pizza party and bought her a laptop for trying her best. College was 4 years of ramen noodles and library study sessions while working 2 jobs. I delivered pizzas until midnight, then woke up at 5 to clean office buildings before classes. Every semester I called home hoping to hear pride in their voices about my dean's list achievements. Instead, the conversations always shifted to worry about Amanda's latest crisis. After college, I worked 80-hour weeks at a small marketing firm, sleeping on a friend's couch to save money. Meanwhile, Amanda dropped out of community college after 1 semester and moved back home. While I fought for every promotion and client, she slept until noon and spent evenings watching television. The pattern continued through my 20s. When I finally saved enough to rent my own apartment, Amanda wrecked her car and needed $3,000 for repairs. My parents called me crying about how Amanda couldn't get to her job at the clothing store. I emptied my emergency fund to help her, thinking family meant sacrifice. When I bought my first car, a used Honda with 150,000 miles, Amanda complained that it was newer than hers. 2 weeks later, my parents surprised her with a lease on a brand new Toyota, explaining that she needed reliable transportation more than I did since I lived closer to work. 3 years ago, when Dad lost his job at the manufacturing plant, I took out a personal loan to cover their mortgage payment for 6 months. That same Christmas, they bought Amanda a $5,000 European cruise because she was feeling depressed about not having a boyfriend. Every family gathering followed the same script. I would arrive with thoughtful gifts and updates about my career progress, only to watch my parents fuss over Amanda's latest job interview or dating drama. If I mentioned a work achievement, they would nod politely before asking Amanda about her weekend plans. Last year, I finally earned my promotion to senior marketing director at a major firm in downtown Cleveland. The salary increase meant I could finally afford something I had dreamed about for years, giving my parents the vacation they had always talked about but could never afford. I spent 3 months researching the perfect European itinerary. First-class flights on Delta to Paris, 5 nights at Le Bristol, one of the most exclusive hotels on Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, private tours of the Louvre with expert guides, dinner reservations at Michelin-starred restaurants they had only seen in travel magazines. Then Rome for a week. The Hassler Hotel overlooking the Spanish Steps. Private Vatican tours with special access to areas closed to regular tourists. Cooking classes in Trastevere. Day trips to Tuscany with a personal driver. Finally, Barcelona for 5 magical days. The Hotel Arts with Mediterranean views. Exclusive flamenco performances. Private Gaudí architecture tours. Wine tastings in nearby Penedès. Every detail was planned with love and precision. I researched their favorite foods, their dream destinations, their bucket list experiences. This was my chance to finally show them how much I appreciated their support, even if that support had always felt conditional. I worked extra hours for months to afford the trip, taking on weekend consulting projects and skipping meals to save money. When I tallied the final cost, $15,000, I felt proud rather than stressed. This was my gift to them for their 45th wedding anniversary. This was how I would finally earn their undivided attention and gratitude. I imagined us strolling through Parisian markets, sharing wine in Roman piazzas, laughing together in Barcelona. 3 weeks of uninterrupted time where I would be their focus, their successful son who made their dreams possible. Instead, as I sat in my apartment that evening, I stared at my phone displaying Amanda's latest Instagram story. She was at the airport posing with our parents, captioning the photo, "Free vacation time." Some people are just too generous for their own good. The accompanying message she sent directly to me was even crueler. "Thanks for the trip, loser mom and dad finally realized who really deserves their love. Maybe next time you'll learn not to try so hard." I set my phone down and looked around my empty apartment. On my desk sat a folder containing every confirmation email, every reservation detail, every carefully planned moment of the trip I would never take. The betrayal felt complete, but something deeper was stirring inside me. For the first time in my adult life, I felt ready to stop being the family doormat. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. If my family wanted to enjoy a trip I paid for without me, they were welcome to try. But as the person who made all the reservations, I held more power than they realized. I pulled up the confirmation emails for Le Bristol in Paris. Reading the fine print I had memorized during booking, I found exactly what I expected. Primary guest must present photo identification and the credit card used for booking upon check-in. Hotel policy strictly enforced for security purposes. A quick phone call to the hotel's concierge desk confirmed my suspicions. The polite French voice explained that European luxury hotels maintain strict identification policies. Without Bedford Matthews present with his identification and credit card, no Amanda Matthews or Frank and Helen Matthews would be permitted to check in regardless of their relationship claims. I called the Michelin-starred restaurant Le Grand Bedford, where I had secured reservations for their second night. The maitre d' explained that their exclusive dining room required confirmation from the credit card holder 24 hours in advance, along with presentation of the booking card upon arrival. My private Louvre tour required similar verification. The Vatican tour company in Rome had identical policies. Every single experience I had carefully planned and paid for was locked behind my physical presence and identification. But as I dug deeper into the situation, I discovered something far more disturbing than their travel predicament. 3 weeks earlier, Amanda had started posting cryptic messages on social media about her upcoming dream vacation. I had dismissed these posts as her usual attention-seeking behavior, but now I examined them with new eyes. "Some people try so hard to buy love," she had written 2 weeks ago. "Lucky for me, love isn't something you can purchase with money." A week later, family loyalty isn't about who spends the most. It's about who really understands what matters. 5 days ago, big announcements coming soon. Sometimes the universe rewards patience over desperation. But the posts that made my blood boil were the ones she had made in private Facebook groups I discovered through mutual friends. In a group called Cleveland 20-somethings, she had written, "My pathetic older brother is trying to buy our parents' love with some expensive European trip." Little does he know mom and dad are way smarter than that. They know who really deserves their time and attention. Another post from 2 weeks ago. "It's hilarious how some people think money can replace personality. My brother keeps throwing cash at our family, like that will make up for being boring and obsessive. Meanwhile, I just have to be myself and everyone loves me." The most painful discovery came in screenshots a friend forwarded to me from Amanda's private Instagram story, visible only to her closest friends. She had posted a photo of our family dinner from last month, the night I had announced the European trip as my anniversary gift to our parents. "Look at this desperate fool trying to buy affection," she had written over a photo of me explaining the itinerary. "Mom and Dad are just being polite, but we all know who they really want to spend time with. I give it 2 weeks before they ask me to come instead." Beneath that, she had added, "Update. It took exactly 12 days. They're taking me to Europe instead of Mr. Tryhard. Some people are just born to be loved and others have to rent it." But the real shock came when I found her posts from that very morning, made while they were at the airport. "Operation Replace the boring brother. Complete." She had written with laughing emojis. "Currently at the airport with mom and dad, heading to Europe on someone else's dime. He was so shocked when we told him the look on his face was priceless. Sometimes you just have to be direct about what you deserve." The comments from her friends were equally revealing. Several people had liked and responded with fire emojis and comments like "queen behavior" and "your brother sounds like a total failure anyway." One friend had written, "Wait, he planned and paid for the whole thing and you're just taking his place? That's savage, but I love it." Amanda's response, "He's been trying to buy our parents' love for years. It was time someone showed him that real relationships aren't transactional. Plus, I actually deserve a vacation after all the stress I've been under with the job search." I screenshotted every post, every comment, every piece of evidence of her calculated manipulation. But the discovery that sent me over the edge came at 8:30 that evening. My phone rang with a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Matthews." The voice belonged to Jennifer, my travel agent from Luxury European Experiences. "I'm calling because we've had some unusual activity on your account today." My heart raced. "What kind of activity?" "Someone called this afternoon claiming to be you, requesting that all reservations be transferred to an Amanda Matthews. The caller provided some of your basic information but couldn't verify your security questions. We denied the request, but I wanted to alert you to potential fraud." Did they say anything else? "The caller became quite aggressive when we refused the transfer. She insisted she was your sister and that you had given her permission to manage the trip. She demanded we email her confirmation numbers and threatened to leave negative reviews if we didn't comply." I closed my eyes. "Thank you for protecting my account, Jennifer." "Of course, Mr. Matthews. We take security very seriously. I should also mention that we received a similar call yesterday from someone claiming to be your mother requesting the same information. My parents had been part of this scheme from the beginning. The casual delivery of the news in the driveway hadn't been spontaneous. They had been planning this betrayal for days, possibly weeks." As I hung up the phone, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was transforming into something more powerful: determination. For 32 years, I had absorbed every slight, every inequity, every moment of being treated as the family ATM instead of the family son. Tomorrow, my family would land in Paris, expecting luxury and finding locked doors. But I was going to discover just how deep this betrayal went before I decided what to do about it. The next 24 hours passed in a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. I went through the motions of a normal workday, attending meetings and responding to emails, but my mind was fixated on what was happening 6 time zones away. At 2:15 in the afternoon, Cleveland time, which was 8:15 in the evening, Paris time, my phone buzzed with the first call. Bedford. My mother's voice sounded strained and exhausted. We're having some trouble with the hotel. I kept my voice neutral. What kind of trouble, Mom? They won't let us check in. They keep insisting they need you here with some identification card. Can you call them and straighten this out? We've been standing in this lobby for 2 hours. In the background, I could hear Amanda's voice rising in frustration, speaking to someone in heavily accented English. This is completely ridiculous. My brother made these reservations for us. We shouldn't need him here to check into a hotel room. A male voice with a French accent responded politely but firmly, Madame, I understand your frustration, but hotel policy requires the credit card holder to be present for check-in. This is standard procedure for all luxury accommodations in Paris. My father took the phone from my mother. Son, you need to fix this situation right now. We're tired, we've been traveling all day, and these people are being completely unreasonable. Dad, I can't fix it. European hotels have strict policies about credit card security. The reservations are in my name because I paid for them. Well, then transfer them to our names or something. You're the one who works in business. Figure it out. It doesn't work that way. The hotels require physical presence of the card holder. Amanda grabbed the phone. Bedford, stop being such a vindictive jerk. Call that hotel right now and tell them to give us our rooms. They're not your rooms, Amanda. I paid for them. Mom and Dad chose me to come on this trip instead of you. That means the rooms are ours now. I could hear my parents murmuring agreement in the background. That's not how hotel reservations work. I explained, though I knew logic wouldn't penetrate their entitlement. Fix this now or I'm never speaking to you again, Amanda screamed before hanging up. For 3 hours, my phone remained silent. Then came a text from my mother. We found a different hotel near the airport. This cost us €400 for one night. You owe us an explanation for this humiliation. I looked up budget hotels near Charles de Gaulle Airport. The area was known for overpriced minimal accommodations that catered to stranded travelers. €400 would have gotten them a basic room with thin walls and no amenities, a far cry from the luxury suite at Le Bristol they had expected. The next morning brought another crisis call. Bedford, we went to that restaurant you booked for our anniversary dinner. My mother said, her voice tight with embarrassment. They wouldn't seat us. They said the reservation required confirmation from you. I'm sorry that happened, Mom. Sorry. Do you understand how humiliating it was to be turned away from a fancy restaurant in front of all those people? Amanda was mortified. Why was Amanda mortified? It's your anniversary dinner. My mother paused. Well, she was looking forward to the experience I planned and paid for. Don't be smart with me, young man. You're being petty and cruel and it needs to stop. But it was Amanda who delivered the most revealing call that afternoon. Listen, you pathetic fool, she hissed into the phone. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but it ends now. Transfer everything to my name immediately, or I'll make sure Mom and Dad never speak to you again. You can't transfer hotel reservations and tour bookings across international borders, Amanda. It's not possible. Then cancel everything and give me the money instead. The money is already spent on reservations. Then get refunds. European luxury bookings are non-refundable unless canceled 72 hours in advance. She was quiet for a long moment. You planned this, didn't you? You deliberately booked everything under your name so we couldn't use it without you. I booked everything under my name because I paid for it with my money for my planned trip with my parents. This is financial abuse. You're holding us hostage. You're the ones who decided to exclude me from my own trip. Amanda's voice turned calculating. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, I have ways of making you cooperate. She hung up, leaving me with an uneasy feeling about what she meant. That evening, I received a series of texts that made my blood run cold. From Amanda, hope you enjoyed your little power trip today. Followed by, just remember, I know where you work. Then your boss would probably be interested to know how you abuse your family financially. And finally, people like you don't deserve family. Maybe it's time everyone knew what kind of person you really are. But the real shock came the next morning when I checked my credit card statement online. 5 unauthorized charges had appeared overnight, all from London. Harrods department store. 427 pounds Selfridges. 298 pounds. The Ritz. London afternoon tea. 145 pounds. A jewelry store in Covent Garden. 612 pounds. Eurostar train tickets from Paris to London. 238 pounds. Over $1,500 in charges I hadn't made, all while my family was supposed to be struggling with budget accommodations in Paris. I called Amanda immediately. "Oh, hi, Bedford," she answered sweetly as if our previous conversations hadn't happened. "Amanda, you used my credit card without permission. That's fraud." "I have no idea what you're talking about." "You're in London, not Paris. I can see the charges." Her voice dropped its innocent tone. "Prove it." "The credit card charges are proof. Those could be from anywhere. How do you know I'm in London?" But she had just confirmed my suspicion. Amanda had abandoned our parents in Paris and taken the train to London, using my credit card to fund her shopping spree. "Where are Mom and Dad right now, Amanda?" They're with me." "Put Dad on the phone." "He's in the bathroom." "Then put Mom on." "She's sleeping." It's 2 in the afternoon in London. Amanda's story fell apart as she scrambled for explanations. But the final piece of the puzzle came in a call I received an hour later from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Bedford Matthews?" The voice belonged to an American man with a slight Southern accent. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Ryan Walsh. I'm calling about Amanda Matthews. I believe she's your sister." My stomach dropped. "What about Amanda?" "She's been seeing my husband for the past 6 months. I found hotel receipts in his belongings showing he's been paying for her trips and expenses. According to his credit card statements, he wired her $2,000 last week for what he called a European emergency." The room spun around me. "Your husband, Marcus Walsh." He told Amanda he was divorced, but we've been married for 8 years. When I confronted him this morning, he admitted everything. He's been embezzling money from his company to pay for their affair. Amanda hadn't just betrayed me and abandoned our parents. She had been conducting an affair with a married man, using his stolen money to fund her lifestyle, while manipulating our family into giving her my vacation. "Mrs. Walsh, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. Mr. Matthews, your sister, has been posting photos on social media, showing off expensive purchases and travel experiences. My husband has been stealing from his employer to pay for all of it. He's about to be fired, and we're facing bankruptcy because of your sister's demands." As I hung up the phone, I realized Amanda's schemes ran far deeper than family manipulation. She was destroying multiple lives to fund her entitled lifestyle, and somehow I had become her unwitting enabler by working so hard to earn money she felt entitled to steal. But Amanda had made one crucial mistake. She had underestimated how much evidence she was creating with every manipulative move. And tomorrow I was going to start collecting every piece of that evidence to make sure she faced consequences for the first time in her life. The conversation with Ryan Walsh's wife had been a wake-up call. Amanda wasn't just hurting our family. She was destroying strangers' lives with her manipulation and greed. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt clarity about what I needed to do. I started by documenting everything. Screenshots of every social media post, saved copies of every text message, records of every phone call. I created a detailed timeline of events, including Amanda's premeditated planning, her credit card fraud, and her abandonment of our parents in a foreign country. Next, I called my credit card company's fraud department. "Mr. Matthews, thank you for calling First National Security. How can I help you today?" "I need to report unauthorized charges on my account. My sister has been using my card without permission in London." "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Can you verify your identity for me?" After going through security questions, I explained the situation. The representative Sarah listened patiently as I detailed the charges and provided context about Amanda's theft of my information. Mr. Matthews, based on what you're telling me, this appears to be a clear case of credit card fraud by a family member. Do you want to pursue this as a criminal matter? I hesitated. Filing charges against Amanda would make this situation permanent and public. But then I thought about Mrs. Walsh facing bankruptcy because of Amanda's affair. I thought about our parents stranded in Paris because of Amanda's selfishness. Yes, I want to pursue charges. I'll start the fraud investigation immediately. In the meantime, we'll reverse all unauthorized charges and send you a new card. Please save any evidence you have of the fraudulent usage. My next call was to my travel agent, Jennifer. Mr. Matthews, I was hoping to hear from you. We've had more calls about your account. More attempts at fraud. Unfortunately, yes. Yesterday, someone claiming to be your father called demanding we cancel all your bookings and send refund checks to an address in Ohio. We refused, but the caller became quite threatening. This was getting worse by the hour. My parents were now actively trying to steal money from my reservations, while simultaneously demanding I fix their problems in Europe. Jennifer, I need to discuss my options for the remaining bookings. Of course, what would you like to do? I thought carefully. Can you cancel everything and process refunds where possible? Because of the fraud attempts on your account, I can authorize full refunds even for typically non-refundable bookings. European hotels take fraud very seriously. You should receive approximately $11,000 back within 5 business days. $11,000. That was money Amanda couldn't touch, money my parents couldn't demand, money I could use to rebuild my savings and plan a future that didn't include financing other people's ingratitude. But my investigation into Amanda's life was just beginning. A quick search of Ohio court records revealed something interesting. Amanda had been sued by a previous employer, a boutique in downtown Cleveland, for till shortages and unexplained inventory losses. The case had been settled out of court, meaning she had likely stolen from them too. Her employment history, visible through professional networking sites, showed a disturbing pattern. 7 jobs in 4 years, most lasting less than 6 months. When I called the manager of her most recent position at a marketing firm, posing as a potential employer, I learned why. Amanda Matthews. The woman's voice turned cold. I can't provide an official reference, but I can tell you we had to implement new cash handling procedures after she left. Let me just say her departure was not voluntary. More theft. Amanda had been stealing from employers while living rent-free at our parents' house and receiving their financial support. But the most damaging discovery came when I examined Amanda's social media more carefully. Hidden in her privacy settings, I found a separate Instagram account under a slightly different name where she had been documenting her affair with Marcus Walsh. Photos of expensive dinners with the caption, "My man knows how to treat a queen." Pictures of jewelry with early Christmas gifts from someone who appreciates me. A post from 3 months ago, "Some women date broke failures. I choose men who can provide the lifestyle I deserve." And most damning, my married boyfriend doesn't know his wife checks their credit card statements. Good thing I convinced him to get a separate card for our fun. Amanda wasn't just participating in an affair, she was actively encouraging Marcus to deceive his wife and steal money to pay for their relationship. That evening, my phone rang with another call from Europe. "Bedford, we need to come home early." My father's voice sounded defeated and exhausted. "This trip has been a disaster from the beginning." "What happened now, Dad?" "Amanda left us. She took a train to London 3 days ago, and we haven't heard from her since. We're stuck in this terrible hotel with no money and no way to do any of the activities we came here for." For the first time in this conversation, I heard genuine regret in his voice. "We made a mistake, son. A big mistake. Your mother and I talked about it, and we realized we treated you unfairly." My mother took the phone. "Bedford, honey, I'm so sorry. We were wrong to exclude you from this trip. Amanda convinced us that you were trying to control us with money, but we see now that she was the one manipulating the situation. What changed your minds? She abandoned us the moment things got difficult. When the hotels wouldn't honor the reservations, she started screaming at us, saying it was our fault for not forcing you to transfer everything to her name. Then she disappeared to London with some man we've never met. My father's voice joined in the background. Son, we've been taking you for granted for years. You've always been there for us, always helped when we needed it, and we repaid you by choosing Amanda over you. We don't deserve your forgiveness, but we're asking for it anyway. The apology I had waited decades to hear was finally happening, but it felt hollow. They were sorry because Amanda's betrayal had affected them, not because they suddenly understood how their favoritism had hurt me. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. But we need to talk about how this happened when you get home. Of course, whatever you need. Can you help us get home early? We'll pay you back for the change fees. I thought about the $11,000 in refunds coming my way. I'll see what I can do. But as I hung up the phone, I realized this conversation had given me something more valuable than an apology. It had shown me that my parents were capable of recognizing their mistakes when consequences became painful enough. The next morning brought a call that changed everything. Mr. Matthews, this is Detective Lisa Johnson with the Cleveland Police Department Economic Crimes Division. We need to speak with you about your sister Amanda Matthews. My heart raced. What about Amanda? We've received a complaint about credit card fraud and embezzlement involving her and a Marcus Walsh. Mr. Walsh's employer has provided evidence that he's been stealing company funds to support an extramarital relationship with your sister. Can you come in this afternoon to provide a statement? Amanda's house of cards was collapsing. Marcus had been caught embezzling, his wife was filing for divorce, and now the police were investigating Amanda's role in the scheme. Detective Johnson Amanda also committed credit card fraud against me. She stole my information and made unauthorized purchases in London. We'd like to hear about that too, Mr. Matthews. This appears to be part of a larger pattern of financial crimes. As I drove to the police station that afternoon, I realized that Amanda had finally pushed her manipulation too far. For 32 years, she had faced no consequences for her selfishness and cruelty. But fraud and embezzlement were crimes that couldn't be excused with family dynamics or enabled by parental favoritism. Justice was finally coming for Amanda, and this time, our parents couldn't protect her from the consequences of her choices. Detective Johnson turned out to be a sharp woman in her 40s, who specialized in financial crimes involving family members. As I sat in the sterile interview room providing my statement about Amanda's credit card fraud, I learned that her investigation had uncovered far more than I had imagined. Mr. Matthews, your sister, has been systematically manipulating multiple people for financial gain. Marcus Walsh was stealing approximately $3,000 per month from his construction company to support her lifestyle. When his employer discovered the embezzlement, Mr. Walsh broke down and admitted everything. She showed me a file thick with printed emails and bank records. According to his testimony, Amanda convinced him to leave his wife for her. She promised they would move to California together if he could provide enough money to start fresh. He's been liquidating his retirement accounts and stealing from company projects to meet her financial demands. How long has this been going on? 8 months. But here's what's interesting. Amanda never intended to leave Cleveland with him. We found text messages on her phone where she mocks him to her friends, calling him a pathetic sugar daddy and joking about how easy it is to manipulate married men. I thought about Mrs. Walsh facing bankruptcy while Amanda treated her husband's destruction as entertainment. Detective, what happens next? We're building a comprehensive case. Amanda's fraud against you, combined with her role in the embezzlement scheme, constitutes multiple felonies. She's looking at potential jail time. As I left the police station, my phone rang with another call from Europe. But this time it wasn't my parents. Bedford. Amanda's voice sounded strained and panicked. We need to talk. Where are you, Amanda? I'm back in Paris. Look, there's been a misunderstanding about the credit card thing. I can explain everything. You're under investigation for fraud. Silence stretched between us. That's impossible. I only used your card for emergencies. $1,500 at luxury stores in London isn't an emergency. I was going to pay you back. With what money you haven't had a job in 8 months? Look, can we just forget about this whole thing? I'll delete the social media posts about you and we can all move forward. I realized Amanda still didn't understand the severity of her situation. She thought this was another family disagreement she could manipulate her way out of. Amanda, the police are involved now. This isn't something I can just forget about. Her voice turned vicious. You vindictive piece of garbage, you're trying to send your own sister to jail because you're jealous that mom and dad love me more than you. You abandoned mom and dad in Paris to pursue your affair with a married man. That's none of your business. You used stolen money to fund that affair while manipulating our family. I didn't steal anything. Marcus gave me that money freely. Marcus was embezzling from his company to give you money. His wife is facing bankruptcy because of your greed. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. Then, that's not my problem. If he chose to spend money on me instead of his ugly wife, that's his decision. The callousness of her response shocked me. Amanda felt no remorse for destroying a marriage, ruining a man's career, or financially devastating an innocent woman. Where are mom and dad right now? I asked. How should I know they can take care of themselves? They're 67 and 65 years old, stranded in a foreign country with no money because of your schemes. They chose to come to Europe. They can figure out how to get home. That night, I received a frantic call from my mother at 3 a.m. Cleveland time. Bedford, something's wrong with your father. Her voice was thick with tears. He's having chest pains and trouble breathing. We're at a hospital in Paris, but they want money up front and our insurance doesn't work here. My anger at my parents' betrayal evaporated instantly. Despite everything that had happened, they were still my family and they were in crisis. Mom, what hospital are you at? She gave me the information and I immediately called their travel insurance company. After an hour of international phone calls and fax documentation, I arranged for their medical coverage and emergency transportation home. Dad's chest pains turned out to be severe anxiety and exhaustion rather than a heart attack, but the scare had shattered my parents' remaining illusions about their European adventure. When they called me the next day, both sounded broken and defeated. Bedford. My mother said quietly. Amanda came to the hospital for 10 minutes, took a selfie for her social media, then left to meet some man for dinner. She said Dad was being dramatic and that we were embarrassing her. She posted the hospital photo, I asked, incredulous, with a caption about how family drama was ruining her vacation. People were commenting with sympathy for her, thinking she was the one taking care of us. My father's voice joined the conversation. Son, we've been blind fools. Amanda doesn't care about anyone but herself. We let her turn us against you, and then she abandoned us the moment we needed her. She told the nurses we weren't her real family, my mother added. She claimed she was just traveling with us and had no responsibility to help. As my parents spoke, I realized that their week in Europe had accomplished something decades of family arguments couldn't. It had forced them to see Amanda's true character without the buffer of familiar surroundings and financial safety nets. But Amanda wasn't finished destroying lives. The next morning, I received a call from my boss. Bedford. I received an interesting email yesterday, Janet said carefully. Someone claiming to be your sister contacted our HR department with allegations about your personal conduct. My stomach dropped. What kind of allegations? She claims you've been financially abusing your family and using company resources for personal travel planning. She also suggested that your recent work performance has been affected by what she called serious personal issues. Janet, my sister, is currently under police investigation for credit card fraud and embezzlement. She's trying to retaliate against me for cooperating with the authorities. I figured it might be something like that. The email was so over the top that it raised red flags immediately. Plus, your work performance has been exceptional lately. I felt relieved that my professional reputation wouldn't suffer from Amanda's desperate attempts at revenge. But that afternoon brought news that changed everything. Detective Johnson called with an update. Mr. Matthews, we've arrested Amanda Matthews at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. She was attempting to board a flight to Los Angeles using a ticket purchased with Marcus Walsh's stolen credit card. She was running away. It appears so. We also discovered she had been planning to meet another man in California, someone she met through online dating, who believes she's a successful marketing executive. She's been using photos from her European trip to convince him she's wealthy and independent. Even from Paris, Amanda had been setting up her next victim. The French authorities will extradite her to Ohio within the week. Given the evidence we've collected, I'm confident she'll face multiple felony charges. As I hung up the phone, I realized Amanda's web of lies and manipulation had finally collapsed under its own weight. For the first time in my adult life, she would face real consequences for her actions. But more importantly, my parents had finally seen the truth about their golden child. The question now was whether our family could heal from decades of dysfunction, or whether some betrayals cut too deep to ever fully repair. The next few days passed in a blur of legal consultations and international phone calls. Amanda's arrest in Paris had triggered a complex extradition process, but Detective Johnson assured me that French authorities were cooperating fully with the investigation. My parents returned to Cleveland 3 days later, looking exhausted and emotionally shattered. I met them at the airport, and for the first time in my adult life, both of them hugged me without any hidden agenda or conditional affection. "We're so sorry, Bedford," my mother whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We've been terrible parents to you." My father, normally stoic and reserved, broke down completely. "Son, I've been jealous of your success for years. Instead of being proud of you, I let my own failures make me resentful. I turned that resentment against you, and I convinced your mother to do the same thing." The conversation we should have had decades ago finally happened in the airport parking lot. My parents admitted to years of favoritism, financial manipulation, and emotional neglect. They acknowledged that their fear of Amanda's instability had led them to enable her worst behaviors while punishing me for being responsible and successful. "We thought you didn't need as much attention because you were doing so well on your own," my mother explained. "But we realize now that we weren't showing you love. We were just taking advantage of your strength and reliability." For the first time in my life, I felt like my parents truly saw me as their son, rather than their backup plan. But Amanda's legal troubles were far from over. My attorney, Robert Chen, had reviewed all the evidence and painted a grim picture of her future. "Bedford, your sister, is facing charges of credit card fraud conspiracy to commit embezzlement and wire fraud across state lines. The total value of her crimes exceeds $50,000 when you include Marcus Walsh's stolen funds." What's the likely outcome? Without a plea agreement, she's looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison. The prosecution has an overwhelming case. 2 weeks later, Amanda was extradited to Cleveland and held on a $100,000 bond that our parents couldn't afford to pay. For the first time in her adult life, Amanda faced consequences she couldn't charm, manipulate, or cry her way out of. Her first phone call from jail was to me. "Bedford, you have to drop the charges," she pleaded, her voice stripped of its usual arrogance. "I'll pay you back every penny. I'll get a job and make this right." "Amanda, you committed felonies. This isn't about money anymore." "Please, I'm your sister. Family is supposed to protect each other. Family is supposed to love and respect each other. You've never done either of those things. I was just having fun. I never meant to hurt anyone seriously. You destroyed Marcus Walsh's marriage and career. You left our 67-year-old parents stranded in a foreign country. You tried to ruin my professional reputation. Which part of that was just having fun?" Amanda's voice turned desperate. "I'll change. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes." "You'll have plenty of time for self-reflection in prison." Her last words before hanging up were a string of profanities and threats that made me grateful for the recorded jail phone system. But the most significant development came 3 weeks later when Detective Johnson called with news that would change everything. Mr. Matthews, we've uncovered something major in Amanda's case. During our investigation of her financial records, we discovered she's been running an online fraud scheme for over a year. What kind of scheme? She's been creating fake profiles on dating websites targeting divorced and widowed men with money. She convinces them she's a successful businesswoman, traveling frequently for work, then requests emergency funds for various fabricated crises. My blood ran cold. How many men? We've identified at least 12 victims across 6 states. The total amount stolen exceeds $200,000. Amanda hadn't just been manipulating our family and Marcus Walsh. She had been systematically defrauding strangers across the country while living in our parents' house and pretending to look for legitimate work. One victim, a retired teacher from Florida, lost his entire retirement savings to her schemes. Another man in Texas mortgaged his house to send her money for a fake medical emergency. The scope of Amanda's cruelty was breathtaking. She had been destroying lives as a full-time occupation while our parents worried about her employment prospects. Mr. Matthews, given these new charges, Amanda is now facing 15 to 20 years in federal prison. The FBI has joined the investigation because the crimes cross state lines. Federal charges meant Amanda couldn't rely on local connections or family sympathy to reduce her sentence. She had committed serious crimes against vulnerable people, and the justice system was finally prepared to hold her accountable. My attorney called later that day with another development. Bedford, Amanda's public defender, contacted me about a plea agreement. She wants to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence of 10 years. What do you think? Honestly, 10 years might be generous. With all the evidence against her, she could easily get the full 20 years if this goes to trial. But the decision wasn't entirely mine to make. Amanda's crimes had affected dozens of people, and her punishment needed to reflect the scope of her destructive behavior. 2 months later, I sat in a federal courtroom watching my sister stand before a judge in an orange jumpsuit. The confident, manipulative woman who had tormented our family for decades looked small and defeated as she admitted to 17 counts of fraud, theft, and conspiracy. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed Amanda's crimes with evident disgust. Ms. Matthews, you have systematically preyed upon vulnerable people for your own financial gain. You have shown no remorse for the lives you've destroyed and no recognition of the harm you've caused. Your behavior represents a clear danger to society. Amanda's voice was barely audible as she accepted the 10-year plea agreement. But the most powerful moment came when the judge addressed the victims who had traveled to Cleveland for the sentencing hearing. To the families and individuals who suffered because of Ms. Matthews' crimes, I want you to know that justice has been served today. This defendant will not have the opportunity to hurt anyone else for a very long time. As Amanda was led away in handcuffs, I felt a complex mixture of relief, sadness, and closure. The sister who had made my childhood miserable and my adult life complicated was finally facing the consequences of her choices. But more importantly, our family had finally learned the difference between love and enabling, between supporting someone and allowing them to harm others. The long journey toward healing could finally begin. 6 months after Amanda's sentencing, I found myself sitting in my parents' living room for the first genuine family conversation we'd ever had. The house felt different now, quieter, more peaceful, without the constant tension of Amanda's drama and manipulation. My mother had transformed the room that used to be Amanda's bedroom into a home office where she volunteered for a literacy program teaching adults to read. My father had started attending therapy to deal with his anger and resentment issues that had poisoned our relationship for decades. Bedford. My mother said, setting down her coffee cup, "We need to talk about restitution." Over the past months, my parents had been working with financial counselors to understand how their enabling had contributed to Amanda's crimes. They had liquidated their retirement accounts to help repay some of Amanda's victims, and they were committed to making things right. "We can't give you back the $15,000 you lost on the trip," my father said, his voice heavy with regret. "But we've set up a college fund for any children you might have someday. It's not enough to undo the damage, but it's a start. Dad, you don't need to. Yes, we do, he interrupted firmly. We allowed our daughter to become a criminal, and we treated our son like an ATM instead of a human being. Money won't fix that, but it's one way we can show you that we're serious about change. My mother pulled out a folder of financial documents. We've also rewritten our will. Everything is split equally between you and Amanda now, but your portion is protected in a trust that she can never access. When she gets out of prison, she'll receive enough to start over, but she'll never again have the resources to hurt people the way she did. The changes in my parents went beyond money. For the first time in my life, they asked about my career goals, my relationship prospects, and my dreams without immediately shifting the conversation to Amanda's problems. They remembered my birthday without prompting and called just to check on my well-being rather than asking for help with crises. But the most profound change came in how we discussed Amanda herself. "Son, we need you to understand something," my father said carefully. "We're not cutting Amanda out of our lives permanently. She's still our daughter, and when she's released from prison, we'll support her efforts to build a legitimate life." I tensed, worried that old patterns were returning. "But," my mother continued, "we'll never again prioritize her needs over yours or anyone else's. We've learned that helping someone doesn't mean enabling them to hurt other people." They had started attending family therapy sessions to understand the dynamics that had created our dysfunction. Through those sessions, they'd learned about boundaries, accountability, and the difference between love and manipulation. "Amanda will always be our daughter," my mother explained, "but she's no longer our responsibility to fix or protect from consequences." That distinction has changed everything for us. My own healing process had been equally transformative. Through individual therapy, I'd come to understand that my compulsive need to earn love through financial gestures had made me an easy target for manipulation. I'd learned to recognize my own worth independent of what I could provide for others. 3 months earlier, I'd taken the $11,000 in trip refunds and planned a solo journey to Ireland where I'd connected with distant relatives and discovered family history I'd never known. For 2 weeks, I'd hiked the Irish countryside, visited ancient castles, and experienced the peace that comes from traveling for pure personal enjoyment rather than obligation. The trip had taught me something crucial. I could create meaningful experiences and lasting memories without needing anyone else's approval or gratitude. But the most significant development in my life came through an unexpected source. During Amanda's sentencing hearing, I'd met Sarah Chen, a victims' rights advocate who'd been supporting the families affected by Amanda's crimes. Sarah was brilliant, compassionate, and dedicated to helping people rebuild their lives after financial trauma. We'd started dating 4 months ago, and for the first time in my life, I was in a relationship where my financial success was appreciated rather than exploited. Sarah loved me for my kindness, my resilience, and my determination to build something positive from the wreckage of family dysfunction. "You know what I admire most about you," she'd said during a recent dinner conversation. "You could have become bitter and closed off after everything your family put you through. Instead, you used the experience to become more empathetic and self-aware. Our relationship was built on mutual respect and shared values rather than financial dependence or emotional manipulation." For the first time, I understood what healthy love actually felt like. But perhaps the most meaningful change was in my relationship with myself. I'd stopped working 80-hour weeks, stopped saying yes to every request for financial help, and stopped measuring my worth by other people's approval. I'd learned to invest in experiences that brought me joy, relationships that added value to my life, and goals that reflected my own dreams rather than other people's expectations. Last month, I'd been promoted to marketing director for the entire Midwest region, a position that came with significant salary increase and the opportunity to mentor young professionals starting their careers. Instead of immediately thinking about how the extra money could solve other people's problems, I'd focused on how it could support my own growth and happiness. The promotion also came with something I'd never had before: genuine pride from my parents. "We're so proud of you, son," my father had said when I told them about the advancement. "Not because of the money or status, but because you've built something meaningful through your own hard work and integrity. You're going to be an excellent leader," my mother had added. "You have the wisdom that comes from overcoming adversity and the empathy that comes from understanding what it feels like to be treated unfairly." As I sat in their living room that evening, reflecting on the transformation our family had undergone, I realized that Amanda's crimes had inadvertently given us something precious: the truth. For 32 years, we'd all been living in a fiction where Amanda's needs justified any level of family dysfunction, where my success meant I deserved less attention and care, where keeping peace was more important than maintaining justice. Amanda's arrest had shattered that fiction and forced us all to confront reality. My parents had to acknowledge their failures as parents and as people. I had to recognize my own patterns of self-sacrifice and people-pleasing that had enabled the mistreatment to continue. Most importantly, we'd all learned that genuine love requires accountability, that family loyalty doesn't mean protecting people from the consequences of their choices, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to let them face the full weight of their actions. Amanda's 10-year prison sentence wasn't just punishment for her crimes. It was an opportunity for her to develop empathy, accountability, and genuine respect for other people's rights and feelings. Whether she chose to use that opportunity was up to her. But regardless of Amanda's choices, the rest of our family had already committed to building something better from the ruins of our dysfunction. My parents were learning to be grandparents in waiting, focusing on creating positive relationships rather than managing crises. I was learning to be a son who could accept love without feeling obligated to earn it through constant sacrifice. And Sarah and I were building a partnership based on mutual support and shared dreams rather than financial dependency or emotional manipulation. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the European trip that had started this entire journey. I'd originally planned it as a way to finally earn my parents' undivided appreciation and attention. Instead, it had taught me something far more valuable: that love cannot be purchased, respect cannot be demanded, and family relationships built on financial transactions, rather than genuine affection, will always eventually collapse. But more importantly, I'd learned that I deserved love, respect, and happiness not because of what I could provide for others, but simply because of who I was as a person. The trip I'd planned with my parents never happened, but the journey of self-discovery it triggered had been more transformative than any vacation could have been. Next month, Sarah and I were planning our own European adventure. We'd visit the same cities I'd originally planned to explore with my parents, but this time the trip would be about creating new memories rather than trying to heal old wounds. And for the first time in my adult life, I was traveling not to prove my worth to someone else, but simply to celebrate the life I'd built and the future I was creating. The most powerful lesson I learned through this ordeal was that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who teach us the most important truths about ourselves. Amanda's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been liberating. Her actions had forced me to recognize my own worth and taught our entire family the difference between genuine love and manipulative dependency. As I looked toward the future, I felt grateful for the painful experience that had ultimately led to authentic healing and real transformation. Sometimes the worst betrayals create the opportunity for the best new beginnings. Have you ever found yourself constantly giving to family members who only take advantage of your generosity, never showing genuine appreciation for your sacrifices? Sometimes the most painful family experiences teach us the most important lessons about setting boundaries and recognizing our own worth. If this story resonated with you and reminded you that you deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of what you can provide for others, please take a moment to like this video to help it reach more people who might need to hear this message. Share this story with someone who has struggled with family members who take advantage of their kindness. Sometimes hearing about others' experiences helps us recognize unhealthy patterns in our own lives. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about overcoming family dysfunction and building healthier relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation. Your engagement with these stories helps create a community where people can find validation and support for their experiences. Thank you for listening to my journey and for being part of a community that believes everyone deserves to be valued for who they are, not just what they can give. Remember that genuine love never requires you to sacrifice your own well-being or financial security to prove your worth. Take care of yourselves, set healthy boundaries with the people in your life, and never forget that you deserve relationships built on mutual respect and authentic affection.